Okay, so as I said, this is problem number 5. I don't like the wording. It makes the problem a vocabulary problem instead of a physics problem. If you guys remember from way back when we first started adding vectors, we used the term resultant, right? When we said that vector A plus vector B is equal to R, and we used the handy-dandy table of science where we had all the stuff here, and then we had sine and cosine, and then we took the components and added them up and came around. Remember that table? All right. Well, that's what we mean by a resultant, is the vector sum. Well, when we say the resultant force, what we're really saying is the net force. Okay? And so when we say the net force, we have to look at a free body diagram and vertical loop, and at the bottom of the loop, right? At the bottom of the loop, if we say like this, the bottom of the loop we have mg acting downward, and if it's the seat of a pilot, right, as we'll just say it's a normal force, but we know that the normal force plus mg as vectors, what we're saying is normal force vector plus mg force vector has to be equal to the centripetal force requirement vector, which is pointing upward. In other words, what we're saying is, I'm going to change this so I can move this around relative to it. In other words, what we're saying is the net force vector is this plus this, or this, right? When we say the green vector plus the red vector is equal to the blue vector, and we know if this object is moving in a circle that the net force has to be the centripetal force requirement, or mv squared over r. That's all you needed to do for this problem. Probably what most of you solved for was this green vector up here, the normal force vector, which has to exceed the centripetal force requirement by the amount mg in order to compensate for the downward force of gravity. So all you needed to do for this one, the resultant force, is equal to the net force vector, okay? And that's going to be an upward force of mv squared over r, okay? So if you solved for that and you did it correctly, you got 1.4 kilonewtons, okay? And if you solved for the green vector, which is probably what most of you thought you were solving for, you got 2.1 kilonewtons, okay? And so that ended up being wrong, but that's more consistent with the problems that you have been doing, okay? So you see why this is more about vocabulary than it is about the physics of what's going on? So if you miss that one, I wouldn't feel like, oh, you know, I don't know what's going on. You probably do. You probably were just reading too much into it, okay? So we will, I won't have a problem that's a vocabulary problem on the test, okay? But I wanted you to see why using the word resultant has a very specific meaning. It means the vector sum, okay? Any questions about that one? All right.